George Bernard Shaw famously said, "England and America are two countries separated by a common language." There are words that most people know mean different things on either side of the pond. Blood, over there, over here, is a nothing word that carries little weight. Over there, bloody is bloody strong language, and used to strengthen almost any adjective, and convert it into a kind of profanity. Bloody Prime Minister is a bloody idiot. An American term that will invariably give a Brit uncontrollable giggles is fanny pack. In most of us too. In British English, the word fanny is slang for a woman's genitalia, so you can imagine why they think it's funny. I had been living in England for 2 years already when the pandemic hit, and my dad lived alone in Wyoming. So we have daily Zoom calls. My sister joined us sometime later on these daily calls. During one Zoom call, I logged in shortly after getting some disturbing news from my daughter. My older daughter had been planning to attend a PhD program in LA. But less than a week before she was due to leave, her mother staged an intervention because my grandson has autism. When I shared this with my dad and my sister and my brother-in-law, I expected my sister to agree that it was a terrible thing. After all, my niece also lives with autism, though far more severe. Instead, my sister said, "I agree with your ex-wife. Your daughter has no business leaving Grady behind for 3 days a week." We went back and forth, and it got heated. I asked to change the subject 3 times. She said no, because you still don't understand, and you probably never will. You need to grow up and accept when you're wrong. In that moment, I had a flash of understanding. My sister has thought of me as her idiot brother for years. I slammed my laptop shut on the conversation, and in my anger, I shouted to my wife in another room, "That condescending cunt!" When I told my wife about the conversation, her reaction was, "Well, you're not wrong." And then I discovered my headphone wire prevented my laptop from fully closing. And I was still logged into the call. Oh, shit. That word means the same thing in England as it does here. When I told a few of my British colleagues, they assured me that I had used the word correctly. And agreed that it was also a poor choice of word to use with an American. You see, in England, the word cunt is nearly always applied to men. The British meaning indicates the man in question is contemptible, despicable, or just plain foolish. The word is so ubiquitous that Britons often use it to express an embarrassing level of foolishness in themselves. It does not carry the weight it does here. There are progressive levels to allow the British speaker to convey the intensity of the feeling underlying the word. For example, one level up from a simple C word is a proper cunt. The speaker is indicating here that not only is the man in question a fool, their foolishness is neat and tidy and correct in every respect. This is no simple fool, but a fool with hospital corners. One more level up is right proper cunt. And here, the speaker means to convey that not only is the subject's foolishness or contemptuousness correct in all respects, they are so good at being stupidly foolish, the crown should grant them an estate or a seat in the House of Lords. Of course, I didn't have any of these meanings in mind when I said it. It just popped out. We've all said something in anger that we instantly regretted. On reflection, I felt like a proper cunt. 6 weeks later, Dad fell while working on his house, and it stunned him. When he recovered enough to walk, he settled on the living room sofa and decided he'd had enough and lay there waiting to die. We have no idea how long he'd been there when a friend found him severely dehydrated and barely lucid. The ER patched him up and sent him home. I came home from London. By then, Dad hadn't had anything to eat or drink but ginger ale for 28 days. When I walked into Dad's bedroom, he was laying on his side in pajamas and a t-shirt looking ancient and frail. During that first talk, there was no trace of his usual humor. I suspect he was dreading that conversation as much as I was. Dad made it clear that he was done with life. He missed Mom too much to go on. I was not surprised. He told me he missed her in every conversation we'd had since Mom passed away in 2018. I felt his determination to just stop living in my stomach and in my heart, like a long, unexpected fall. Okay, I said. I'm here to support your wishes, Dad. I won't try to change your mind. Then go home to London and let me die, he said. I told him I couldn't do that. I thought he couldn't possibly go on much longer. He wasn't even interested in lifting his head off the pillow. I enrolled him in hospice that afternoon. The admitting nurse told us that a person could survive on just ginger ale for a surprisingly long time. Dad made it nearly 60 days. We talked about memories and adventures and about Mom. He told me that after he was gone and I returned to England, I should go to Edinburgh. I've been there, Dad. We love it. It's a beautiful city. There's a photo I took of your mother standing on the steps of the cathedral in Edinburgh. That's how he always talked to me about her. Your mother, never your mom, or simply Mom. Dad shared the last of his memories of Mom with me, and it broke my heart. How did I not know these things already? It was real work in those moments to keep from crying. I asked him why he waited until now, and he just gave me a one-shoulder shrug. You have your own life, he said. When my sister arrived, things were tense. She was barely civil, and I don't blame her. The conversations with Dad were easy and comfortable, but each one ended with him asking me, how much longer is this going to take? I didn't show it, but it wrecked me every time. If my sister was there when he asked that question, she would clench her teeth and leave the room. One day, he told me about listening to Mom struggle to breathe in her last minutes of her life. Her death rattle, he called it. He didn't want me to hear his. Go back to London. I wanted to be there with him when he took his last breath. I wanted to be there to support my dad, to love and encourage him to the very end. I wanted to be there because it felt right. I wanted to be there because I thought it was my duty as his son. I wanted to be there because I was concerned about how my sister might react to the grief of losing Dad. She and I process grief very differently. I went home to London. 2 days later, my sister called me at the office and said he was gone. By the time my wife and I got there, my sister had handled almost everything, leaving me with minor tasks like selecting music for the memorial. I felt worse than useless. My sister began making unilateral decisions about how to dispose of Mom and Dad's belongings. She wanted it piled in the living room for an estate sale. She left the day after Dad's memorial, leaving us clear instructions to do nothing. Instead, we tried to make things easier for her when she returned. And we took photos that meant something to me. Stuff Dad took during our summers in Maine. The last portrait Dad took of Mom while she lay dying. Her face a contorted rictus of pain and horror. As unable to move, she looked into the face of death. I have seen it twice. Once when my dad showed it to me a few days after Mom passed away. And once when we got it home. I can't bear to see it again. Last summer, when I retired, my British friends and colleagues gave me some stunning gifts. By far, the one that means the most to me is the certificate of Anglicization made by my British friends, certifying me as an honorary Englishman. Among the qualifications listed is this one at the bottom. Confident use of the C word in a variety of social settings. A cunt, I most certainly am. But I know what the word means in 2 different languages.